Oh, just over here on mute, talking for 10 seconds. Hello. Happy Friday. Nope. Happy Thursday. I had an idea that I wanted to, watch this specific YouTube video, and I said, might as well just stream for a little bit. Inspired by my boy Jason, a good friend of mine who has been going live randomly on YouTube. So I'm doing that, but I'm also playing around on StreamYard. I always forget what it's called. I want to call it SteamYard. Okay, so this video is a documentary about the Montreal Screwjob. Actually, I should probably... I'm changing the title of the stream to Watch the Montreal Screwjob with Me. Okay. Nope, that's not it.
You know what's coming next. It's the 1997 Survivor Series, and the 20,000 fans inside Montreal's Molson Centre aren't exactly sure what to expect. A rather tense bit of drama is playing out before their eyes, and when what happens next transpires, they won't exactly know what to think. They'll experience feelings of shock, certainly, confusion, definitely, and anger, inevitably. That is Canadian icon Bret the Hitman Hart lying prone on the canvas, legs crisscrossed. Across the globe, Hart is a time-tested hero in the world of professional wrestling, but he's especially royal, the finest grappler to step out of the frozen prairies of Calgary. And at this moment, as these images flicker before a worldwide audience, he is the reigning World Wrestling Federation champion. But not for long. Hart thinks he knows how this story ends, but he really doesn't. The man twisting his legs is Shawn Michaels, the stated challenger and perpetual thorn in the side of the Hitman. Though he and Hart genuinely do not like one another, with a staggering sum of ever-mounting grievances between them, they are, to this point, doing the jobs asked of them in mostly professional fashion. Two of the finest in-ring wrestlers that have ever lived, Hart and Michaels are carrying out the script of a heated battle, the main event of this particular Survivor Series. Michaels is about to flip Hart over onto his stomach in order to complete a hold known as the sharpshooter, Hart's finishing maneuver. To Hart, this is just one step in their crescendoing dance of death, but Michaels knows that if he does this right, it's the last step. See, Michaels knows something Hart doesn't. In fact, several individuals scattered both behind the curtains and at ringside, including tense-looking boss Vince McMahon, already know how this story ends. Hart doesn't, but he'll be up to speed quickly enough. In a saga that had been historically crazy to this point, the true craziness will commence any second now. But before Michael steps over to complete this submission hold, we need to look at how this entire snapshot in time came to be. This moment and its aftermath was shaped by the sins of the past and the unsteadiness of the present, and the future of wrestling as we'd all come to know it will be molded by what happens next. There's going to be a lot to take in here. It's a professional wrestling tale that's as unbelievable as it is glaringly real. Five years can be an eternity, especially so in professional wrestling. The fact that Hart and Michaels were the top champions heading into the 1992 Survivor Series doesn't sound surprising today, but for the time, it was a bit of an eye-opener. Both were certainly talented and deserving, but Hart and Michaels being on top then signified a radical change in promotional philosophy. Increased scrutiny regarding illicit substances in professional wrestling had McMahon and company firmly under the microscope. And though Hart and Michaels weren't ever really squeaky clean on that front, at least neither of them was a walking billboard for growth hormones, so they had that going for them. Others weren't so fortunate. Throughout 1992, the WWF executed a major house cleaning that expelled talents from up and down the roster. Some of them, though not all, due to the company's need to clean up their overly testosterone image. Other cuts were just long-in-the-tooth veterans. Check this out. Of the 44 men originally scheduled to wrestle at the 1992 Royal Rumble, 18 of them were gone by that November's Survivor Series, and over the ensuing years, the roster metamorphosis remained rabid. By November 1993, 15 of those remaining 26 left the WWF as well. By the 1994 Survivor Series, 11 turned to 7, and come the 1995 show, IRS had departed to make it 6. By 1 year later, the Bushwhackers had faded from the scene to bring us down to 4, and those 4 still remained come the 1997 Survivor Series. While some of those outbound 40 made comebacks here and there, the Bulldogs, the Pipers, the Animals, and Hawks, there are just 4 out of the 44 that remained with the WWF as an active wrestler through that whole stretch. Owen Hart, The Undertaker, Shawn Michaels, and Bret Hart. The quartet was there through all of the changes, the dying wheezes of Hulkamania giving way to the ill-fated new generation. When that family-friendly pap failed to resonate with the dwindling audience, elements of 90s junk culture seeped their way in as the WWF started developing an attitude. Through all of the drastic changes in scenery and tone, Hart and Michaels consistently occupied the top title scenes, anchoring them mostly dependably. Handpicked to fill the top spots 5 years earlier, the Hitman and the Heartbreak Kid continued doing the WWF's heavy lifting, even when Rome burned around them. And burn, it most certainly did. For the period of May 1st, 1994 to April 30th, 1995, the WWF lost $4.4 million, leading to heavy downsizing. Though the WWF did turn a $3.3 million profit the following fiscal year, they ended up losing $6.5 million in the same stretch for 96 to 97. This was the period in which rival company World Championship Wrestling began making its boldest leaps. Steered by the aggressive hand of one Eric Bischoff, WCW positioned itself as a genuine threat to the globally renowned, though image-wounded, World Wrestling Federation. The leveling up process began with the signing of Hulk Hogan in 1994. 6 months later, Macho Man Randy Savage jumped ship from the WWF, giving WCW another mainstream star that could immediately be plugged into the main event. Mesmerizing as it was to see both mega powers playing for Team Turner, 4 future acquisitions proved especially shocking, despite all 4 talents having worked for WCW previously. When WCW launched Monday Nitro as direct competition to WWF Raw in 1995, there was an unlikely name on hand to help cut the ribbon: Lex Luger. Working without a WWF contract for many months, Luger covertly negotiated a new deal with Bischoff and WCW while still making towns for McMahon. Just one day after working a WWF house show in Eastern Canada, Luger traveled to Bloomington, Minnesota, where he strode down the aisleway on the first ever Nitro broadcast, to the shock of everyone, including an unsuspecting Vince. Following that sizable shockwave, Bischoff began making a habit out of giving other ex-WWF stars the same sort of tremor-inducing reintroductions. That December, the woman known as Alundra Blaze was let go from the WWF. Still in possession of the Federation's women's title, the reborn Medusa showed up on Nitro less than a week later, binning the belt in an infamous act of defiance. 2 months later, Bischoff scored 2 gigantic coups when he lured away a pair of McMahon's relative giants on expiring contracts: Razor Ramon and Diesel. McMahon had taken former WCW mid-carders Scott Hall and Kevin Nash and turned them into some of his top properties in the mid-90s. However, money talked. Specifically, McMahon's money was tight, whereas Bischoff had the resources to bolster his thriving product through major league deals. As Bret Hart later revealed, when Nash told him the terms of the lucrative deal offered by Bischoff, it was more than what Hart was making in his 3rd reign as WWF champion, with far less dates. The WWF roster was already thin by the spring of 1996, especially the main event tier. The Razor and Diesel-sized voids were only going to erode the company's diminished prestige even more. And they weren't the only top WWF guys on expiring deals. In August of 1995, Hart learned from McMahon what he'd be doing for the next 8 months or so. He would win the WWF title from Diesel at November's Survivor Series before going on to drop the gold to Michaels at WrestleMania 12 in Anaheim. Hart was asked if he had any issue dropping the belt to Michaels, who by this time had gained a negative reputation in the locker room. Arrogance, political maneuverings, and apparent disdain for his peers, and a host of other issues made Shawn a polarizing figure, arguably the most complete performer in all of American wrestling, but one with plenty of baggage. Nonetheless, Hart was cool with losing the belt to Michaels. Though he and others were well aware of Michaels' various idiosyncrasies and habits, he believed that Michaels had earned a run with the gold. And Michaels looked to be the ideal ace. While most of WCW's top guys aged older, 30-year-old Michaels was younger, hipper, wildly charismatic, and could do more between the ropes. And so, in overtime of a grueling 60-minute Iron Man match, Michaels vanquished Hart with 2 super kicks, culminating the so-termed boyhood dream. Michaels was now the leader of the new generation, the on-screen general in what was becoming a heated Monday Night War. At the time of Michaels' victory, WWF Monday Night Raw was hanging tough with the fresher, more daring WCW Nitro in the Nielsen ratings, though it had only won head-to-head 4 times thus far in 1996. Post-WrestleMania, however, Raw won the next 6 matchups with Nitro, though those were mostly weeks in which WCW scheduling was compromised by the NBA playoffs. By mid-May, an unencumbered WCW was winning again and was about to unveil the latest in their long line of shiny new toys. On May 27th, the former Razor Ramon jumped the rail on WCW Monday Nitro during an undercard bout. The intrusion was faux reality done justice, as Scott Hall and 2 weeks later Kevin Nash became the talk of the industry by gate-crashing Monday Nitro on a weekly basis. Beginning the week after Nash's first appearance, Nitro began a near 2-year run of dominance over Raw, beating them every single week in the Nielsen ratings into April of 1998. It was quite ironic that after the biggest win of his career, Michaels' exploits were taking a backseat to what his best friends were doing on the other channel. The July 1st episode of Raw pitted champion Michaels against former partner Marty Jannetty, and
So, my computer's about to die. So I'm going to end this stream and go to bed. Thanks for watching. If you watch this, comment below if you're rewatching or if you watch live. Night.